Hey, this is Brett Bumeter. I'm here with my co-host Warren Whitlock, and this is the ZetaMining Show. This is episode 30 or 31. I forget. I forgot to look up the number before the start of the show.
I think we're at the big old 3-0 now, so let's
I think,
celebrate.
I think
Yay!
so. Yeah, hey, we're 30. So we've today's show we're going to be talking about what uh, someone might do, what the world might do, what businesses might do as the speeds of broadband increase. Researchers in Denmark, I believe, they achieved 43 terabits per second the other day, and setting a new world record. The previous record had been stuck for a couple of years, and they reclaimed their title of having the fastest test run site. And the tech of this is interesting, but Warren and I are interested in what would you do with that much speed, because they set up the example in an article on extremetech.com, basically saying that you could download a movie in 0.2 milliseconds, which sounds cool, better than slow, but not terribly practical, because you don't necessarily need a movie in zero point 0.2 seconds or 0.2 milliseconds. So we'd like to talk a little bit about that and invite you to join in the discussion and or watch as we're going through what would you do with that much speed. So that's where we are today, Warren. What do you think? How would you like to kick this conversation off a little bit?
Well, I think let me go back to ancient history, something like about 1987. I was reading a book about the MIT Media Lab, which is still everything I ever see out of MIT Media Lab is interesting. But one chapter in the book recorded a conversation of something they called the Brown Bag Tuesday or something like that, and boy, I may even forget the whole title of it. Story was that every once in a while they just got around and talked about things that they weren't exactly experimenting on. And somebody said, what would we do if we had unlimited bandwidth? Mind you, this is 1987. This is like pre-commercial internet. And the discussion there has always stuck with me as being what the promise is of being able to actually have real connectivity to get whatever you wanted. The line that stuck with me was Library of Congress. They talked about having all of the available text from the Library of Congress online and able to download it all in a second. At that point, downloading it becomes irrelevant, and what else are you going to put up there? And that's, of course, got to be an interesting discussion. The details of what they came up with aren't quite as, interesting as the fact that they were having that discussion back then. And I've always thought that we're going to get that day. When we get up to terabytes, or terabits, this is a bit test, terabits.
So, yep.
Let's talk about what a terabit is. It's 1,000 gigabits. Or 1,024 actually. And that is 1,000 times a megabit. So we're talking about 1,000,000 times faster than the numbers we experience now. So if you have a really good broadband connection now, 43 might be a number that you're used to. But this is 1,000,000 times faster than that. And again, boy, the math when you add that many zeros starts getting weird, because you can forget and get out, orders of magnitude off of what you're talking about. But the idea of waiting for something to download just goes away. And I try to think back of how it was, and let's conclude the history portion of today's lesson. Back in the old days, if you had a 50 kilobyte, which is only 1,000, so now we're talking 1/10 millionth of this kind of speed. If you had something like that to download, you would ruin your website, because you just could never download the page. People on modems couldn't see it. I had a faster connection. I remember going to a site and going, it was taking 2 minutes to load. I really wanted to see what it was. Somebody had uploaded a picture, and it was a school district, and it was the front of the school district building. And I sat there like thinking, how crazy is this? No one in their right mind is ever going to wait 10 minutes to see a a picture of a building that they know well, and then you know, then if there was anything else with it, back in brochureware days, it would be an announcement telling you how great it was that they had a website. And so think about that kind of frustration we used to have compared to today. And then the frustrations we have with speed today are blown away by these kind of speeds. So literally, yeah. I think what interested me when we were prepping for this show was thinking about how much error correction you could get when you're able to send that. Let's use the movie. You're able to send the movie 3 or 10 times without any noticeable difference, and ensure that there's a complete copy ready to view or use or whatever it is. The same with data. Same with Internet of Things. All the connections that can happen. We can look forward to that just being instant.
Well, there's a couple that brings to mind a couple topics for me as well. One, the tech that we're talking about that was used, it's a type of fiber optics. So we're talking wired or physical connection to connection points. We're not talking wireless yet, although when the infrastructure speeds up that fast, we can expect advances in the radio transmitters that power our Wi-Fis and things like that too. It may not be of the same levels, but you know, there's different bottlenecks in the system. But we're talking fiber, and they were using a multi-core fiber, which is essentially, if you think of fiber optic little cable, it's multiple fiber optic cables all within the one little cable, and then they're running multiplexing of light, laser light, through each one of those little cores, such that instead of just carrying one signal through the fiber, they're showing many different wavelengths of light, different colors, if you want to think of it that way, going down the same tube at the same time. Similar techniques with multiplexing, you know, enable the cellular infrastructure to work the way it does today, such that Verizon doesn't cut you off when one extra person jumps on the same tower you're already on, or when 4,000 people jump on that same tower. So they're constantly finding new ways to add more people running through the same tower, talking at the same time, and they're kind of applying some of those lessons to fiber. So if we think about how this might eventually come to be, it'll take a little bit of an infrastructure rollout before we'll see this. You know, they might even have to do some new transatlantic Pacific cables to replace the old stuff done in the 90s. Or they might do it from point to point in different places first. Hard to say where to go. Some countries might get wired up with the faster juice stuff first. But once we have that speed, I run into bottlenecks all the time, significant ones at that. We've in the news, we've seen Netflix going to court over some of the different broadband providers throttling their speeds for movie downloads. That could potentially be a thing of the past. I see upload bottlenecks more than I see download bottlenecks these days. I've got a relatively fast connection, but that's mostly on the download. On the upload, you know, I get 25 meg down and 5 meg up. The 5 meg up is my bottleneck usually. The 25 down, even with, you know, I work from home, but I share the house with 3 kids and my wife, and you know, if they're watching Netflix and I'm trying to migrate a website or upload, download something to YouTube, you know, and they're maybe playing a few games or something like that, 7 different devices going and a friend's over, you know, we start to see some congestion just in the household itself, let alone the neighborhood when everybody's, you know, something's going on and everybody's taking down the pipe a little bit in the neighborhood. But, you know, we can see all that fade away and become kind of a non-issue with speeds like this. My father-in-law was mentioning to me the other day, he was watching a movie, and he lives in Florida in an area where every time the wind blows, storm dries up, you know, palm tree slightly falls against the power lines, and their power blips out for like a fraction of a second. Not a big deal, but it causes his DVR and home theater system to reset. And we were talking about an up system to prevent the reset, but one of the things that happens in the reset is the movie that he's watching has to rebuffer, and with these types of speeds, you know, solve the power problem as well, but you don't have to let the movie rebuffer anymore. There's no interruption because, like you said, you know, that movie might have been downloaded redundantly just in case 10 times, and buffering becomes a thing of the past. Who needs buffering? Or who needs hard drives? We mentioned,
Right.
you know, it's faster to go up the fiber than it is to the machine.
Yeah, there's some technically there's some things that are hurdles that got to happen, and of course when they announce they've got a 46 terabit test, that could be a decade away from something actually hitting the market. But to me, it's the promise that we're still headed in the right direction. Moore's law still applies, and you can pretty much count on that getting worked out. Yeah, the Netflix thing has to be worked out. I've like flipped my view on net neutrality to, while still being against the tiering of prices, which again is the telcos trying to hold on to an old way of doing it. And by telcos, I mean everybody involved. I'm not trying to single out any one piece of this. The guys my age who are making the decisions on this stuff come from a world where there wasn't this kind of connectivity. And they also have made a lot of money by owning the programming and selling you tiered packages on cable and things like that. So there a lot of that thinking. Remember, also these are the guys that used to sell us a phone call where, the idea of doing even the voice of this transmission would be,
Right.
something that we'd be paying $20, $30, $50 for. Video would be cost prohibitive. There's no way we'd do the show.
Yeah.
And so with that kind of mentality and seeing that erode, you got to say that they're going to do everything they can to try to slow it down. And I think we're going to have some breakthrough there at some point. And so, but my new view on the Netflix thing is that I saw one article discussing how Netflix was installing servers at Time Warner or one of the big companies, and able to push their content out closer to the edge, and actually saving money by paying the big cable company a lot of money. Meanwhile, they're in court fighting them for throttling the speeds.
Yeah, no, the same principle goes into logistics when people, position their warehouse next to the airport or the ports, or Walmart centrally locates something in the middle of the country, or similar thoughts are anywhere you can cut down that bottleneck and get closer to the main pipe.
So when those bottlenecks go away, is what interests me in when the idea is that every phone call can be a video call like they promised us. When I was a kid, went to a fair in 1964 and saw that there was the demonstration of video calls, grainy, horrible, tiny black and white, that someday soon would be everywhere, maybe in the 1970s. And it's still not really here. We've seen people try to deliver a phone that has a camera that's always on, and people really didn't like that. We're now a lot more used to that. So video is an option on every phone call. I started last year. I use Skype almost exclusively for phone calls, and so the same kind of connection we have here is what I have on calls all the time. I'm thinking of changing to a radio show of having video with it all the time, even though it's produced to maximize the quality of the audio. And these are things that happen when you have the bandwidth, redundancy. Another problem, back to the movie metaphor. What the licensing of Netflix works that they never serve you the whole movie. So they serve you pieces of the movie. Are they going to have to, adjust that so that the idea being that they buffer about a minute on your device?
Sure. Yeah, same thing for Pandora or some of the music services, or they're based on streaming and streaming laws. But when you're actually downloading it that fast, it's if you're streaming I don't know what it'd take to if a movie can be done in 0.2 microseconds, then a song's going to come in at 0.001 or something like that.
Right.
It's a download at that point. It's not a stream.
Catalog in a second. All the music, all of your music. Well, the idea of getting a new device and having to worry about where the music is there on the phone, or they still make iPods. whatever. You know, that used to be, I've got to have the cable in the right place. I had to do this. Even with Wi-Fi, instant transfers and stuff, it's still something you have to think about. And another idea I had, she was 9 years ago, talking to somebody about podcasts, and they said that you know, well, people can listen to podcasts in the car. Say, I drive a 2002 year SUV right now, and it has no connection. You know, if I want to listen to something from the phone, I've got to put it through Bluetooth to a speaker, which is then tuned to the radio. So it comes out, it works, but you know, it's a kludge. I'm thinking of replacing the stereo in the car, although maybe the whole car needs to be replaced at this point. But you know, there's that was going to come, and I got thinking, well, what do I really want to have happen? I want to be watching the show, listening and paying attention to the audio of it, getting ready to go. Okay, great. I walk out to the car. It's still on. Maybe not watching the video, but seeing the audio, hearing the audio. I'm playing a song. The same song should be playing in my car. We had quite a bit of discussion about what the airwaves could do. If it's delivery of content and you have a playlist ready, it should be available in your car instantly. We have radio waves to get it to the car in various forms, everythh from satellite down to good old AM. That's, you know, if it's audio, delivering the digital stream to the car so that it's exactly what you want should be no problem. Phone calls should never drop because they're redundantly served to you. Add in the technology I've seen demonstrated called E-cell, I think it's called, and we may have talked about on the show before, where a signal is triangulated so that you have 100% reception wherever you are in most every place where there is cell phone coverage. Doesn't take care of the problem of, you know, out in the woods, but it does take care of the problem of in a city. The main problem cell phone towers have is as you put them closer together, you have to go lower wattage, so you don't have two towers fighting for the same signal. And they figured out a way to chop that up. Well, when we can do that, and we do that on any device, the wireless part of things means that we don't run out of bandwidth because you just stick in more antennas, and they share you know, the antennas talk to each other and work it out. You don't have to worry about it. And I think that's great. You know, upstairs, downstairs, I have the same cell reception, inside, outside. It's following me around. Now, once I have that and tie that into unlimited bandwidth, I don't need to worry about getting more memory in the phone or whether I can look anything up. I truly have anything I need. So we're talking about, you know, television. Everything created in the last 70 years becomes immediately available for you to view when you want. How does that change our lives?
You could shoot video all the time through your Google Glass, through your phone, whatever it might be, and record every single thing, and the bandwidth wouldn't be a problem. Now, whether or not you'd ever want to watch that, you'd still have the record if you wanted it. Right. If I was thinking the other day on this topic, I really like the Waze WAZE app for GPS navigation because it helps, you know, identify where problems are on the road or traffic congestion, helps you get around problems and things like that. But sometimes it's a little clunky slow, and you know, with unlimited, you know, where bandwidth is no longer an issue, there are a lot of different. I could have a Waze app that doesn't have a graphic image of my little car, and the car is way down the road. I could have live video feed coming in through the Waze app, guiding me, showing me what the actual intersection I need to turn at looks like. You know, it doesn't. You don't almost need that graphical user interface anymore for a number of different things. You can use real live video of the actual thing because you can push that much video around. You can collect it at the source and then feed it back in through a system.
Right. So we're living in the world of 24.
Right. Live Google video, live Google Maps.
of everything. And so, I mean, we're close enough to that now that I think a discussion of privacy about it is, obviously some kind of cloaking technology where I can remove myself from the public stream when I'm in my house or something like that. That's got to be taken care of. But right now they can. It's not quite like on TV, but just about anywhere you go, there's a camera, there's an angle, there's something being taken of it. And when those become live feeds and the data storage isn't a problem, and they can store them, we may have to come up. Maybe this whole right to be forgotten thing actually becomes more important as we say what can I share and what don't I want to share.
Who gets access to all that stuff? For sure. Yeah, the big brother implications of this are ginormous. Just in terms of, right now they have the ability to save every phone call made. They don't necessarily listen to them all. But, just the means of going in and pulling down those conversations or video or whatever they might have and running them through different systems is tedious and somewhat slow. They can't pull them all down at once. But with a system like this, they could pull down multiple conversations and have a program that strings them all together to put them all into context with two people talking here and two people talking over here and somebody else over here and how they linked up and the string of events going through all them and there's or traffic is another example. If there's video camera every 30 feet on the interstate and through the cities, capturing every single thing from every different angle, you could feed it all into a system and people could access it. Do we want those things?
Right.
It might help for me to get to point A or point B more effectively through my Waze super app, but at the same time it might also allow things that I don't like.
Right. It'd be an interesting thing if you could put a cloaking device on your car and it doesn't put any personal identifiable information in any camera. It cloaks your license plate. It cloaks your the exact color of your car, and the windows are tinted enough that somebody can't tell that there's a car there. And is that legal to do? Well, the license plate maybe not, but if the license plate now can be identified in some other way, maybe it can be only for the right radar gun that is tuned to do that. There are answers to those kind of things, but we have to have that discussion. It's really not about the NSA's out there doing anything they can to collect information. That's their mission. And, it's not, hey, there's this Snowden guy screwed things up for them. But, we can't just solve today's problem. We got to think that what are you going to do if everything is available? And do you want to live a completely recorded life? Some people do. I've read two very interesting things. And the first that I recall is Bill Gates mentioning it in his first book back, it was 95. It's nice to be the same age as the richest man on earth. It'd be nice to have the money instead, but hey, I'll live with being the same age. So I don't remember when something happened. But anyway, he discussed what if something in your eyeglasses was able to record everything that happened. And I got thinking, at the time, I had some experience with somebody that was doing early things about mounting cameras on police cars. That was in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And it required a big lump of equipment in the trunk and huge budgets. And at the time, it even made sense. The ability to have a recording of every traffic stop is what we discussed, and the potential savings by installing this equipment made sense back then when it was very expensive to do. Now you're talking about if every rear view mirror has a camera pointing the other direction, then that's a lot of coverage that we have. And we don't worry about bandwidth, we don't worry about storage. What we worry about is who can record what, and I suppose in public it's still all available.
Yeah, I would think with bandwidth like this, self-driving cars become a very easy thing to solve. You don't necessarily have to have the computer in the car. You just need to have the controller in the car. The cameras could feed back to some central system that then runs the car, and not only runs that car, but runs all the cars, such that there is no congestion, there's no accident.
I just saw an interview with the guy who's got a startup who's focusing on the stay in the lane part of driving. Most of the problem we have with accepting driverless cars is giving up the control and worrying about whether or not it's going to bump into something or take you in the wrong place or, you know, kidnap you in your own car. And they're focused on just if you're in a straight line, like you use cruise control now, and if they have a product that I think is going into 100 cars per test right now, that once you're in a lane, seeing that you're in the lane and adjusting to keep you pointed straight in that lane and making sure you don't collide with something in front of you is fairly easy to do compared to driverless car. So we know we've got driverless car. This becomes something that he was talking about, how that becomes acceptable, that if I'm on a highway headed someplace, I get in my lane, bam, I'm taken care of. You know, I think, yeah, now it is very important that I'm able to get, you know, the entertainment or the computer screen or whatever I was working on. Do that. Traveling doesn't mean that you change your life around. So, yeah, gosh. And I don't think we're even being creative here. I think we're just talking about accelerating what we already know about. So
Yeah.
I think now we know that we can have copies of things in every place. We can have redundancy. We no longer worry about things going offline and not working, because there's different backup systems for that, and there's room for all the backup systems.
Yep. I was one thing I would wonder about, the advances, the super speed advances seem to be coming on the fiber side. We're seeing some speed advances through radio and distantly through a couple different types of transmissions down from satellites, but I have to wonder how this might impact things like what we might be eventually doing in outer space. If we ever try to colonize the moon or put a space station out there in orbit somewhere, you know, how does this speed impact? Will they run into bottlenecks, or will Moore's law hit a wall with, you know, just radio transmissions, essentially, that we can't quite counter with fiber? You know, there's concepts out there of building like a space elevator just to lift physical objects from Earth into outer space. Right. What if the space elevator is actually just a fiber elevator? You know, just one long strand of fiber that runs from the moon to the Earth and tethers us into the moon to provide some future colony up there access to the information they need. Or maybe, you know, the UN's essentially owned, controlled by the United Nations these days. What if Google gets the rights to put their servers on the moon and be protected from illegal search and seizures by other countries or something like that, and then they get tethered in?
Yeah, tethered in. Well, of course, the problem with that tether is at that distance, if it breaks, going out to fix it is a real hassle. You know, but when you're talking about that, I'm thinking like fiber is data. And, you know, when you get into the existential idea of, you know, basically we're all data, the universe is any cell, any matter can be down to that, and that's actually in what the conversion from energy to matter right. is. You go like, gosh, you know, maybe a lot of the stuff we talk about, space exploration, being able to go there. I think back on the Starship Enterprise mission to explore the universe. You know, truth is, you get a robot out there without any life support, and I'm not talking about a humanoid robot. I'm talking about, you know, the cameras that with wheels and an ability to move things around. Maybe we explore things a lot faster and get data rather than moving.
The Starship Enterprise might be a drone. I mean, you know, that's what we've got on Mars right now. Just a more effective drone.
Right, right. Yeah, well, and again, if when we miniaturize and have better data and things like that, maybe we don't need to get tethered to Mars to find out about it. Maybe we don't need to even colonize the Moon or Mars. What we're talking about is, can we, explore and really find out what's there? And we could put, 1,000 robots running around on the Moon and collect all sorts of data. Find out, is there a habitable place? Is there something you can do? Use 3D printing technology to more or less use the replicator, And I think,
right. Or where does artificial
printing
intelligence
becomes
come
a
in?
replicator, and data moving is the only bottleneck, which we seem to be well on the way of taking care of. This puts Moore's law out ahead to with some quantum computing things I've read about for storage and even some of the CPU models that they've got going, some of the organic way to build on the nanoscale instead of trying to miniaturize basically sand as the basis of chips.
Right.
I think we get to a point where Moore's law goes well beyond the 2024 that has been a prediction I've read before. And again, the changes from the last 10 years compared to the next 10 years, it's going to be faster, going to be more, and we get rid of a whole lot of bottlenecks. And again, we've not even scratched the surface of what new things we can do. We're just talking about better of the same things we have.
Well, I think one of the areas where this might come into play is one of the things that gives people an advantage over computers so far, and they're catching up when we teach computers how to play chess and stuff like that. They're starting to win, but we have the ability to process quite a bit more, and that's a processor power, but it's also our ability to take in bandwidth. As I'm sitting here talking with you, my ears are, I'm hearing bugs in the background and boats coming and going, and there's a number of different things going on that my senses are picking up, and that's all bandwidth coming in, getting processed. One of the things that this might open up the door for is significant improvements in artificial intelligence. So if there's an artificial intelligence, might look like me, might be some humanoid thing, might not be, but it has a brain that can connect to the web where the processor is and lives, because today we're still a little archaic in terms of we can't build a processor as capable as our brain that would fit in this space yet. We're getting close, but we're not there yet. And then to have the wires of all the inputs coming at the same time. But this might allow us to have, the equivalent of what might look like a 1940s computer to us, big enough to power some artificial intelligent entities, whatever those might be, and take in all the bandwidth of input that they might need to be able to emulate what we're capable of. And so the Captain Kirk on the Starship Enterprise drone, might actually not be run by a person. It might be AI connected back to some hive brain or something like that.
When you're talking about 500 years in the future, that you need the drama of people running around in a spaceship solving problems and getting into fistfights,
Right.
It's ridiculous. We don't need that. Will there still be the longing to explore and people to go and to travel? Yeah, of course. So I'm not saying travel doesn't happen. I'm just saying the need for it doesn't happen. There are some things, one I always think about is the Grand Canyon. I live fairly close to the Grand Canyon now. Always my whole life haven't been that far from it. And until, I think it was 47 the first time I went to the Grand Canyon, thinking I can see anything. If I can see a picture, I can travel the world. I refer to that as, I'd like to say I've been to Machu Picchu. I'm not really sure if I'd be looking forward to the trip to go to all that effort to say I've been to Machu Picchu. But so, and again, the travel is in the experience in what you're doing, and I haven't run out of experiences that I can do without going there. So I haven't planned a trip. But I'm thinking, so the travel, that's the appeal's there to go yourself.
Yep.
But I remember driving into the parking lot next to the Grand Canyon, and suddenly seeing a glimpse of it out there, and without even getting, it's probably still a quarter mile from it. I was in awe. I could feel it through my whole body. And then I went on stand on the edge, and just, the thing that you can't get by visualizing it in numbers and pictures. And so,
Right.
what do we get? How do we give more of those experiences to people? Well, you know, throwing a camera into the Grand Canyon when cameras are disposable and recording everything.
Well, that brings up, as opposed to artificial intelligence, we could have that drone that sends back looks like a person, and almost down to the skin maybe, but is essentially a remote control robot with all of those inputs getting fed back to a person that's receiving those in, because we have the bandwidth to accommodate all that sensory information coming in. So you could visit Machu Picchu and avoid the altitude sickness of going up to 11,000 feet, but still have all the other sensory perceptions about it, and be safe, so that if if your robot slips on a step and falls 2,000 feet, you don't die. Or maybe you want to experience what it's like to jump off of Machu Picchu without, calling it quits. And maybe you want to do that 3 or 4 times, or maybe somebody's manning that Starship Enterprise drone to have the experience, but in safety.
At that point, I get thinking about the movies that have portrayed this and the other stories as like, when everybody has a drone and they're all, sitting at home hooked up to VR, and there's no reality. We're all just like, we turn ourselves into a matrix situation, and maybe that's not needed. Maybe if we want to have a camera thrown off the edge of the Grand Canyon, and let's be environmentally politically correct here. Of course, that camera would not touch anything and would fly back up.
Right.
But to find out what happens with it, and it doesn't need to be in a humanoid form even to be able to see a camera that may be correcting for tumbling or not, and an experience of that. The other movie thing I see all the time is that they assume that if the experience gets real enough, what happens when you die in your dreams or you die in virtual reality. And they talk about having to take that signal out. And I don't know, maybe that's something there, but we have the data bandwidth to be able to do that. Seems creepy, the idea that there would be 100 people at Machu Picchu all in remote control robots exploring.
Right. Well, I would, it could be a monetary thing. It could be because it's cheaper. It could be a safety thing. Machu Picchu is not very dangerous, but people do, not everybody, but some people do go through altitude sickness when they go there, and then that takes away from the experience. Well, it could be, experiencing Mount Everest without having to put Sherpas at danger. Because your drone can go up there, it doesn't need the oxygen or life support, and so you're not risking someone's life to help you get up Mount Everest, but you could still go to the tallest mountain on the planet, or go to the largest mountain on Earth, which is actually in the Pacific Ocean, but you're diving down instead of climbing up.
The idea of exploring places we haven't been to, just like it's when I think of space travel, I go like, we haven't been to most of the ocean, so
yep.
A lot of things to do. And when we start looking at how to incentivize and make things easier, I think we're into the topic for another show, but making the incentives to do these things no longer about what we've been thinking we have to do before. That somebody wants to do something rather than we were talking about privacy earlier. If you make it so that you get something for giving up your privacy, and that's a choice, and it's a conscious choice you make at any time, where at a blink you can erase yourself from the data, You know, so
Right.
legally you come up and say, well, why did you go dark for that time? But you know, we start thinking of life in a different way. To quote the current hit movie Lucy, you know, we've been alive for 1 billion years. Now we know how to live.
Right.
I go like, okay, no, that movie didn't teach me anything about that, but it got me thinking about the idea that yeah, there's a lot more out there to do. We can explore all sorts of other things if we get rid of the mundane that's getting in the way. Like, you know, can you hear me now?
Right.
So we get time to do other things. So I have to do this again and go into a show about things that we haven't thought of before. I think a couple of new ones came to my mind while we're talking here. This has been fun.
It has. So let's before we close, we've got a couple of new things just to mention at the show. We recently set up the show as a podcast and got it accepted in iTunes. So we want to let everybody know, I'm digging for the link real quick, that we are on iTunes now. It's the ZetaMining Show on iTunes. I'll share that link in a new service that Google Hangouts is also offering called Showcase, which allows us to share a couple links within the show. Not exactly sure how this works on the receiver's end because I just saw it when we logged in today to start the show. So let us know what you think of Google Hangouts Showcase app. I'm going to look at it later. I'm not sure if this will show up in the actual YouTube video or if it's in the Google Plus feed or what it is. But I do like the ability of.
If you can't see it, let us know.
Yeah, if you can't see it, let us know. Or if you are seeing it, I'm also including the. Well, it won't let me include our link to our. There it goes, our YouTube page, which of course is visible easily down at the bottom of the screen. Please check us out and consider subscribing to us on YouTube. Check out this show every week. And if you like, check out our podcast. We're starting by uploading some of our older shows first, and once we get those all cut up and uploaded, then it'll be a new weekly show every week in the podcast. That's audio only so far, so there'll be audio on iTunes if you want to get the show to go or catch up on some shows you might have missed. And we're always here on YouTube as well. So
and
that's...
we're Brett Baum and Warren Whitlock if you want to talk to us on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever else is out there.
That's right. Catch us anywhere else. If you've got questions, you would like to be on a show or have an interesting topic for us, love to hear from you. So thanks for joining us for our 30th, and we will see you next week.